Perfect. Okay. So just a super brief recap, because some of these terms are going to come up again. NAICS codes have to do with industries and range from 2 to 6-digit codes, with 2 being the broadest and 6 being the most detailed. SOC codes have to do with occupations, and they are 6-digit codes. And ONET codes are occupations, and they have just a little bit more detail. So they have those SOC code, 6 digits plus 2 additional digits, something else other than 00 if there is additional detail available. So let me go ahead and go into the presentation. Great. Well, thank you guys for having me. Demand occupations and industries. And the way that I've structured this presentation, just to provide a preview, is that first I'll go over what in-demand industries mean. I'll also be going through the methodology quite a bit. I think it's really important to understand the concept of in-demand industries and how these were chosen, because sometimes I come across misconceptions that, OEO just kind of chose these, and that's definitely not true. And it helps you address questions that I know you might get with, how do I use these, and why should we use these? And then I'll go over some of the resources that we have available on the OEO website, and show you how you can use them. The official WIOA reflection on in-demand industries are their industries or occupations that contribute to the growth or stability of other supporting businesses or the growth of other industry sectors. So this is definitely purposely vague on purpose, because it allows an agency, an area, to define what they want to consider contributing to the growth or stability of other industries. And WIOA also outlines that they wanted the in-demand industries and occupations to support development of targeted career pathways for WIOA program participants. They wanted it to help determine the educational programs included on the ETPL or eligible training provider list, to have some continuity between, what's actually affecting the economy and what people are being trained in. And I know some local areas, some of them are, I don't know if they're on the call, but some local areas have actually already put this concept into practice and incentivized, additional training dollars for those who do trainings in an in-demand industry or within an in-demand occupation. And it doesn't mean that, people can't take trainings or, can't go into careers that are not in demand. It just means that by incentivizing it, a local area or a training provider is communicating that these occupations or industries have a better outcome. They have more room for growth, opportunities, room for growth, room for opportunities, and that definitely goes into pay as well, which is important. So this slide sums up what WIOA was aiming for and some of the things that have been put into place to meet that criteria. So when OEO wanted to come up with a methodology for how something would be designated as in demand, they took this framework and considered the following information. So OEO, we met with different agencies and considered specific factors that would be important when determining our methodology for what qualifies as an in-demand industry. And listed on this slide, things like pay, growth, things like that. So you could see that we focused on the future needs of businesses. So that includes things like growth, how many openings there are going to be within occupations, economic self-sufficiency, so good wages that are going to sustain people, and then job security, so emphasis on high-skilled occupations. And by high-skilled, that doesn't just mean things that require a master's degree. Often that means things that require, certifications, special training that don't necessarily mean, a PhD. That's a common misconception that I come across. I just wanted to note that. But based on these factors and the emphasis on high-skilled occupations, which can also mean that there are skills that are transferable to other types of occupations, the next slide will show our resulting methodology and the variables we chose to reflect the information that WIOA outlined, and then the information that we wanted to target here, and that a lot of you noted in the for things that are important to you for choosing a career. So within the OEO methodology, in terms of how we were going to, in a quantitative way, define what in demand was, some of the things we used were, current employment and wages, historic employment and wage growth, and then projected employment growth, and then employment and wage advantages, so or location quotient, which very briefly would be summed up as employment density within an area. So first we're going to talk about the in-demand industries, and then we'll go into the occupation later. But the way we define the industries were that we put them at that 2-digit NAICS code level, so that broadest level. I know this sounds kind of disparate, but when you put all this together, these were ultimately the in-demand industries for the state of Arizona. And I put the industry, and then I put the NAICS code here. These were also adopted by the Workforce Arizona Council. And these industries, whether it's, workforce planning, workforce development, whether you're working with clients, these industries are a great jumping off point in terms of looking at industries that are going to have an impact on the state overall. And so I listed the industry and then the NAICS code. You'll see that broad level, that 2-digit code. These ones, manufacturing and transportation, they're just 31 through 33 because it goes across multiple ones. But if you're wondering what that information technology means, you'll see that in a few of the areas where that is included. So if you're familiar with the NAICS structure, nothing is actually reflective of information technology as we would think of it, which is pretty surprising. And definitely surprised me when I learned that as well. So to create what we would think of as information technology within our methodology, we went ahead and pulled these detailed codes that are down at the 5-digit level, so more detailed, to create what most people would think of as information technology. And then we ran it through our methodology, and it did come up as an in-demand industry. When people ask me, which industries are best for workforce planning, I definitely say start and look at the statewide in-demand industries because maybe construction, that's not what somebody wants to do. Maybe more healthcare is more for them. So I think it gives really good options and good targeted options for, clients and workforce planning. And I know this seems pretty, this can seem really abstract, and you might be wondering, okay, but what about other industries? How does this connect to what I'm doing? And the way I would answer that is just that it works to focus finite resources. So obviously, unfortunately, we don't have unlimited training dollars to give to participants. We don't, ourselves, we don't have unlimited time. So what these industries that have the in-demand designations do is focus those finite resources on the practical side for workforce analysts, business services, business expansion. It just works to focus the efforts and provide the best outcomes and the highest return. So that's why we do not include every single industry. Not everything is ranked because that would just be honestly not worth the time that it would take to do it. So that's why we went ahead and ran our methodology. So we have that focus for the in-demand industries. And for, employer engagement, workforce planning, the list of industries is helpful because rather than focusing, coming up with your own methodology, determining what would be best, which, that is definitely valid. But instead of, taking your time and being like, hey, I'm going to come up with my methodology for what industries, I should focus on, we kind of go ahead and provide that information for you based off of that methodology that I explained. So essentially it just works to save time on multiple different fronts. So let me show you a few resources. Like I said, we also provide, I'll go over to our website in just a moment. So we provide more than just the list that I showed a couple slides back. I just did that for this, but we show a lot of things like employment level, projected growth, and let me go over to our website. So this is our in-demand page on our website. And I'm scrolling a little fast here just to scroll down to the information I want to show. So we have the in-demand industries you'll see listed for each local area that have been ran through our methodology. And so it's very tailored, very specific analysis, depending on what your needs are, whether you want to focus statewide or if you want to focus on a particular area. So for example, if you click, look at the in-demand industries in detail for Arizona. You clicked, this is what would come up. You can see the ranking for the industries, how many people are employed, the average wages, all of that information. And especially on the workforce planning side, I've given presentations in the past where I've explained that you can focus on maybe if you want to focus on industries that have higher wages, or maybe industries that are going to have more growth, or industries that already have, the most jobs to build off of a large employment base that's already there. So there are different ways you can go, but this information definitely helps you be able to discern and take those different factors into account. And if you don't like the spreadsheet, if it's just kind of, this is a lot of information, or you just want something more interactive, on that same page, if you scroll up, we have our in-demand industry visualization. So you hit local area and you can see what the in-demand industries are for your area, and you can see what they are, and it has that same information in that spreadsheet format right here. So very, very helpful for sifting through all of that information that is available. And something else that I wanted to know is that these are released roughly every 2 years. We're due for another update on these later this year, but when they came out in 2019, this is what they were, and we still definitely recommend there's still industries that are going to have an impact on the economy. So if you're curious with some of that information, it says projected growth 18 to 20, and the historical growth, when they came out in 2019 was from 2015 to 2018. All of these industries encompass a lot of different jobs. You'll see just on the page here, how many different industries there are. And within all of those industries, there are lots of occupations, which bring us to our in-demand occupations. So we have a lot of diversity among different industries, occupations for all education levels. No single occupation, I'll get that question occasionally, no single occupation would be considered, quote unquote, the best. And these were determined in a very similar way to the in-demand industries. The way these are ranked are going to be just a little bit different than the straightforward ranking for the in-demand industries, where it was just, one was quote unquote the best, and then so on. So I'll show you and explain how these are ranked so you can know how to interpret it. So only occupations that are within the in-demand industries were considered for in-demand occupation status. There definitely is a connection between the industries and the occupations. It's not, random or anything like that. There is a relationship there. Occupations, like I said, are ranked at all educational levels. And occupations are ranked against other occupations with similar educational levels. And that just improves the quality of comparison, because if that were not done, then occupations, that require a higher educational attainment level would end up dominating. And that's not what we're seeking to do. We're seeking to show good occupations at all educational levels. So all levels are accounted for. The in-demand industries are considered for the in-demand occupations. So I won't go over that too much, but just a few additional things in the in-demand occupations. So we did focus on historical and current, wage growth and employment growth that I noted at the beginning of the presentation. We also focused on transferable skills and knowledge, skills, and abilities, and we used ONET to do that, to rank the occupations, employment and wage levels, and then projected employment growth and openings. And in-demand occupations, instead of just ranking with, 1 at the top and so on, like in the industries, Occupations were actually given a star rating from 1 to 5, with 5 being the quote unquote best, or the highest ranking for those occupations. 200 plus occupations were ranked overall. And officially only 3, 4, and 5-star occupations are given the in-demand designation. 1 and 2, I'll show you when I show you the resources. We do have those available as well, but they're not, we do recommend just focusing on the 3, 4, and 5, just to target those finite resources like I talked about earlier, which is definitely what the concept of in-demand seeks to do. And then occupations were ranked against occupations with similar educational requirements, and it just improves the quality of comparisons. Wouldn't be very helpful if we just had a list of occupations that required a PhD. So to have this information on there compared just really improves the quality of comparison. And we also have a lot of information for the in-demand occupations, like we did for the in-demand industries, and I'll show you on our website. So on this same page that I was on here, you'll see, in-demand occupations, and you can see the PDF for all the different local areas. I just went ahead and preloaded the list of in-demand occupations for Maricopa workforce area. And you'll see here the occupation title, the average wages, the employment, so how many people are employed within each occupation, the projected openings, education level, and rating by education level. You'll see that 5 there. And now you know what that means. So 5 is the highest ranking, or the highest ranking set of occupations according to our methodology. And then scrolling down, I know this is kind of fast, I'm not supposed to read it. So you'll see the 4s, and then all the way down, we do have the 1s listed there as well. Do recommend focusing on the 3 to 5 just for the finite resources, but these are also good jobs. They came up in the methodology. If you're really looking to have that targeted effect, keep with the 3 to 5. And we did these just to connect to last week. We did these by SOC code as well. I wanted to highlight that there are, occupations with an associate's degree at the 5-star level, occupations with a high school diploma at the 5-star or best level. And at the 3-star level, we have ones that require a bachelor's degree. So we have everything available for each occupational level and provide a lot of good occupational opportunities at all levels, which I know is often a concern for workforce professionals. Again, this is a lot, especially with the occupations. I mean, there's, how many pages are on the Maricopa workforce area? Like 11 pages. That's pretty overwhelming. And again, in the spirit of in-demand, focusing finite resources, we also have our in-demand occupations tool, which I think is my favorite, that we have on our website. Here, this is on that same web page. So if you click over from in-demand industries, in-demand occupations, we have the drop down for Arizona and then all of the local areas as well. So say if you are in, let's do Pima County, and you're working with a client and they want to have, you explain to them that in-demand industries are going to have the most growth, most opportunities, so they should focus on that. And within the in-demand industries, in-demand industries in Pima County, let's say they want to do something in healthcare. So you can put in their minimum education, say they have a high school diploma, and you can see the occupations that are available there. So there's the 5-star rating, and you scroll down, you have the 4, and we have down to the 1 as well, just for those exploratory purposes. So I really like this tool. Again, really good for working with clients or just making it quicker instead of looking through the 10 pages of the spreadsheets that we have, which are still good, but I mean, they don't work in every instance, which is why we provide both. You're working with a client. I recommend focusing on the in-demand industries and occupations, explaining whether it's workforce planning or with the client that these are projected to grow the most, have higher wages, things like that, which is why they should be focused on. Or if you're doing, employer engagement, business expansion, economic development, planning for your local area, I recommend using the in-demand occupations as a starting point. Like I said, they just really are a great way to make the most out of the finite resources that you have to already have, okay, here is a list of occupations and industries that already have a lot of great information and are projected to grow and things like that and are expected to have an effect on the economy. And I definitely recommend looking at the resources on the OEO website that I went over today, and I have the URL links throughout so you can reference those. And again, no one industry or occupation is going to work the best for, any circumstance. So that's why I recommend going to the in-demand occupations for being a great place to start, to have already, a list of great opportunities available. And with that, I have the webpage of where you can find all the information that I went over today.